screen, I know. There you go. This is the Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm calling the meeting to order. The first thing on our agenda is the approval of the minutes for the regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. We did not have a February meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Sog,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Steinbrink,
Yes.
Mrs. Burke.
Abstain.
What happened is Scott is on the call. It shows his name, but it doesn't.
He's muted.
Doesn't want to be seen.
Come on, Scott. Well, at least so you can vote. Tell us.
Yep, you have to unmute.
You have to unmute yourself, please.
There he is.
Where?
Well, he unmuted. Yeah,
Okay.
he unmuted.
Okay, did you vote, Scott? No. Whatever he did, it didn't work. Oh, I'm glad he's in the background. Should I call him too? All right. I'd like to I'm gonna try him also, just because it seems like we're having a little. I don't have his cell number.
I'll see if I do.
I'll look.
I just have his home. At least I think that's what it says on my, I can try it. Oh, it might be because it's a 216.
You might be home.
No, 216 wouldn't be Gates Mills. Where are you?
There somewhere.
Okay, well, we need you to vote. Did you vote for the approval of the minutes? He approves the minutes. Okay, he's got, his microphone is not working, so he's gonna have to tell me on the phone what he's saying. I'll put you on speaker. How's that?
Hey,
Can you hear Scott now?
I can.
Can you guys hear him?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, this is a little bit of this interesting technology. I don't know what's taking Emily so long. All right, I'd like to adjourn the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission and convene a meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I move adjournment.
Second.
Mrs. Sog,
Yes.
Mr. Broom,
Yes.
Mrs. Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Steinbrink,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner.
Yes.
All right, the first thing on our agenda for the Board of Zoning Appeals is a side yard setback variance request for the Rockman residence at 840 West Hill Drive. And when I drove over there, I thought it was interesting that the cul-de-sac is having 2 visitors to our meeting today. That's very unusual to have 2 houses across the street from one another be here on the same night. So it must be a community improvement month. And I assume Joseph Myers, the architect, is here to represent the Ruckmans. And I want to make sure that everyone got Dave's email with the letter. Mrs. Galucci. Did everyone get the email?
No, Nancy, I think your phone is echoing through with Scott.
Oh, sorry, I'll move it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Better.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. I'm not good at this. Of having someone on the phone and being in the meeting. Okay. Mr. Myers.
Yeah, so the Ruckman residence was built, some 10, 15 years ago. And the Ruckmans, due to some physical ailments, are hoping to enlarge their master bathroom so that they can put in some handicap accessible rooms for the features in their bathroom. So we have to put the addition on where we're putting it because it's in addition to their master bathroom, which is off in the back of their master bedroom, location wise. And we're only going back an extra 10 feet. But as the house was approved originally, we kind of went with the one side of the yard was 40 feet from the property line. The other side, we went with the 25-foot minimum because your code is that.
Need a slide down.
Can everybody, I have a suggestion. This is Sandra. Can everybody mute except the person who's talking? Maybe they are, but.
Okay, and Emily has joined us. I can mute. Mute.
Okay, Joe, I think we're good.
Okay. So the house originally was approved. We kind of went with the 25-foot minimum, which is what the side yard setbacks are. And when Dave looked at our request to put the addition on the back of the master bedroom, he came to the realization that the code also says that it should be 40% of the width of the lot at the building line. And so he did some calculations and said that, if that being the case, you would need a total of 74 foot as the side yard setbacks. We have 40 foot at the garage, which would mean that the side yard setback would be 34 feet along this west side where the master bedroom's going on. The house is currently 25 feet and some change from the property line. And so what we're hoping to do tonight is to put this addition on the back, maintain the 25-foot minimum that was originally slated to do the house. And I think this will actually kind of clean up the fact that it's, 25-foot minimum rather than the 40% rule that was, that's also part of the code. So Mrs. Ruckman has talked to the neighbor that's on their left side that this would affect, and has had some discussion with them and they were okay with putting the addition on. And then they went to the homeowners association, who basically said if it's okay with their neighbor next to them, that they didn't have any objection to it either. So we're here tonight, I guess, to say that within the spirit of the law, trying to maintain that 25-foot minimum side yard setback. But within the letter of the law, Dave was pointing out, if we're going to go by the 40% of the width of the lot at the building line, it would actually be a 34-foot setback. We're asking for 25 feet, so it'd be like a 9-foot variance. But in the end, we'd be no closer to the property line than the house is already. And everything they're doing.
I'm sorry. I think we've had some input from the homeowners association that the Mullins would like to have approval. I'm wondering if that's part of the homeowners association rules, or whether the Ruckmans would be willing to just go ahead and voluntarily allow the Mullins to have some approval of this.
Well, I know we've had several conversations with the Mullins, and they verbally gave us the approval. When I talked to Cindy Colucci from the homeowners association, she said that she would, send along an acknowledgement that the homeowners association is okay with it. But I think she felt comfortable not just taking our word for it that we had had a conversation with them, but to say, that, contingent on them approving it.
Well, I believe Pat Mullen is on the call.
Correct.
Pat, do you have a comment?
No, Amy's been in conversations with the Ruckmans. We're very interested in helping him in any way possible. The only minor concern that we have, I should say minor, but that our driveway, which is where they're gonna be doing the work right next to that, is all filled. And you guys rightly, when we built our house 25 years ago, required us to get engineering look at that to make sure that it was going to withstand the test of time. And it was a very good move on your part. We weren't very happy about it, if my memory serves right at the time, but it really was a good move. And I just want to make sure that's not going to infringe on that. We don't think it will, but man, I'm an accountant. I don't know anything about that kind of thing. So I'd like to get some input on how close we'll be to that retaining wall in our driveway fill. But we're very supportive of trying to help you.
Chris, do you have a comment? I think I took, we don't have to be on mute now. I took Scott, since he's here now, I took him off of the phone.
Yeah, I will, I'll go out there and take a look at it with respect to construction around the retaining wall, and then offer any comments as a part of final plan approval.
Joe, do you know what would be the passive construction? Because it looks like there's a lot of trees on that side of the house.
There is a lot of trees on that side of the house, so they would have to kind of hug the house as they try to get to the backyard along that side. The Rockmans, they also are built on a lot of fill, and it was a real engineering feat to fit this house as it was built to begin with. And there's an existing retaining wall behind the addition, and so they've hired a geotechnical engineer who has been guiding them step by step through the process of putting in an addition in the proximity it is to the retaining wall. And so I've already talked to that geotechnical engineer and said, the neighbor is also concerned about their driveway. And if you could guide them, offer guidance as far as, if they see anything that would be disruptive to the adjoining property, that, we want their input on that as well. So
That'd be great if we can get
done under the
copies of any
guidance.
reports. That would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, because when I drove over there, I was fascinated at how low the house is in relation to the street, how the driveway works, and how this is going to work in the back there. I mean, it's really concerning.
Well, each of the driveways are in and seem to work fine. And, as far as approaching any of the construction, would all be through the Ruckman's driveway. It would, they would not even come within 10 feet of the property next door.
Okay.
But just, as an extra precaution, I understand the driveway is built on fill. And so the builder, the Ruckmans, and a geotechnical engineer who's going to guide the whole construction are well aware that, anything that they do would have to, make sure that it maintains the hillside of the driveway next door. They're not going to be digging anywhere near their driveway. They're digging back behind the house. It would mainly be just a concern of, bringing any equipment to behind the house.
No, you're going to have some pretty big equipment in there, I assume.
Well, probably not, because it's only a 10-foot addition, and they really can't fit very big equipment,
Right.
through the trees and down the
That's my
side of that.
concern.
So they've already had a big meeting at the site and said, rather than digging everything that they needed to dig, they were going to actually drill piers to so that it was a lighter. It's basically a bobcat or a small front end loader that would go back there and kind of to do the foundation, and then put piers in, because they couldn't get a piece of equipment big enough back there to, do massive excavation.
Well, that's
So-
kind of what makes sense, because it's really a tight corner.
Yes. And everybody's well aware of that. So it's been a topic of conversation from the first thought of putting an addition on is, this has got to be treated very carefully.
Yeah, with the concern by the neighbor that there could be some traffic issues on that side of the house. If they've already looked at it and they know kind of equipment they're going to be using, just generating a brief drawing that shows the vehicle path to and from the backyard might be helpful for everybody. Give the neighbors some confidence that they're going to have a little better feel for where the equipment's going to be operating.
Well, the equipment is going to drive along the side of the Ruckman's house. It's not a complicated thing, which would be 10 feet off their property line. I did volunteer and plan to include the Mullins in on a meeting with the contractor and the geotechnical engineer so that they could kind of hear about how they're going to go about doing this to feel better about it, just to kind of clue them in ahead of time.
So this will be a pre-construction meeting with the neighbor?
Yes.
That'd be very helpful, I think. That way
Pat,
they can ask any question.
You're good with that?
It had to be done remotely. We're in Florida till May.
Well, the construction probably won't start till May anyways. I mean, we more than likely we'd be able to have that meeting and actually point at the driveway in May before they start the construction. I mean, if we had to do it remotely, we could do that as well with.
I'd prefer to be live. I know my wife would too, so.
Okay.
And when you talk about coming down the driveway, they're coming down the Rockman driveway?
Yes, yes.
So they're coming.
Nothing would come within 10 feet of the property line.
Well, our retaining wall is on the property line.
Correct.
And from what it looks like, they're gonna have to drive something through that very narrow area where there are trees and the retaining wall, and that'll be feet from the property line. That will be less than 10 feet from the property line. And you have any kind of a weighted truck, Bobcat, whatever, go through there enough times, it's gonna disrupt the stability of all that fill, is my concern. And I have conveyed that to Marilyn, and she assures me that whatever damage is done, they will pay for, and I'm grateful for that. And, we want to be good neighbors and we want to help them any way we can. I just have to look out for our property.
Understood. And we'll do everything we can and give you every assurance we can and have a pre-construction meeting to show you just how it will be done. And we have a geotechnical engineer who knows better than anybody what will affect it or not affect it. That will be part of this project.
So seeing his report would be very useful, and the pre-construction meeting would be great, so.
We could grant variance contingent on this pre-construction meeting taking place. That would be fine.
Now, we want to help them in any way we can, but we're just concerned. As I said, you guys made us do exactly what we're talking about when we built the house, and it was very good advice from this committee that forced us to hire a separate person to give us an opinion that the fill would last over the test of time, and it has. It's done great. So,
But it is 25 years old, and
yeah.
Chris, are you satisfied that this is a direction we can go?
Yeah, I think it's a good direction. I think the one thing that should be done before the pre-construction meeting, so we can review the results at the pre-construction meeting, would be to document the condition of the existing wall and take some measurements on it. So you've got something to compare it to once the project is complete, to see if there's been any movement. So typically in the surveying world, it's called a settlement survey. So it'd just be a matter of getting the surveyor out there to get some shots on it, get some points located so we can confirm that it's not going to move.
We do have a surveyor coming to locate the property line and to mark it clearly so that it's clear where the property line is, to make sure we're maintaining the 25 feet. So I could ask him to take a couple shots at the top of the wall while he's out.
Yeah, I would suggest a shot like every 10 feet along the top of the wall, and then maybe some at the toe. So they should document the top and the bottom of the wall, no more than a 20-foot interval along the entire length.
I think we're trying really to just minimize the risk to the Mullins while we try to help the Ruckmans. I think everyone is going in the same direction. It's just that we don't want there to be an accident or a disaster.
Yeah, understood. And the Ruckmans are just as concerned. I mean, they have retaining walls as well, and they're trying to tiptoe around their own retaining walls. So that's why they've gone to the length that they have to.
Sounds like a very delicate procedure. Scott?
So, Chris, would you want to review any geotechnical engineering report and any settlement survey?
Yes.
Okay.
I say yes.
Okay.
He's on mute. Unmute, Chris.
All right. So this is application.
Always gets me. Yeah, I'll want to review that stuff as a part of final plan approval.
Okay. All right. So this is application for a area variance, side yard setback variance for the Ruckman property located at 840 West Hill Drive. The factors that have to be considered. The first factor is the property in question will or will not yield a reasonable return. There can or cannot be beneficial use of the property without the variance because. Well, here the property will definitely yield a reasonable return and there can be beneficial use of the property. However, the beneficial use is declining as the residents age. The proposed variance will allow them to continue their beneficial use. Variance is substantial or insubstantial because. So it's insubstantial as the home is already non-conforming as it encroaches into the side yard setback by 14 feet. The proposed addition, while the will also encroach, the maximum encroachment of the addition will be 15 feet, only 1 foot more than the additional encroachment, and that will be only for a corner of the addition. The essential character of the neighborhood would or would not be substantially altered. Adjoining properties would or would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. So as far as the character of the neighborhood, the building's already located within the 40-foot side yard setback. The proposed addition really would not be very noticeable from the street. It is in keeping with the existing structure. So the substantial detriment to the neighbor, the adjoining property, we're going to address by requiring geotechnical engineering study of not only the Ruckman's retaining wall, but the Mullins retaining wall and the area around it. The variance will be contingent on a pre-construction meeting that will be cleared by the village engineer who will review both the geotechnical engineering study and the settlement survey to make sure that there will not be a substantial detriment to the adjoining property. The variance, next issue is the variance would or would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. It would not. The applicant purchased the property with or without knowledge of the zoning restriction. So I looked, it looks like the Ruckmans purchased in 1990. Is that correct?
That sounds correct.
And I think our ordinance passed in 2000. The prior ordinance was 25 feet. So they did not have knowledge of the 40-foot restriction right now. The applicant's predicament feasibly can or cannot be resolved through some other method other than a variance. Really, given the siting of the house on the lot and the topographical features of the lot, there's really no other way to solve their predicament. And the last is spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would or what would not be observed and substantial justice done or not done by granting the variance because so the house was built in compliance with the old standards and is therefore already non-conforming with the new standards. The proposed addition will hardly be visible, does not exacerbate the existing non-conforming condition to any substantial degree. So with those requirements of the geotechnical engineering studies, the settlement survey, all to be submitted to the village engineer and approved by the village engineer, and the variance being contingent on a pre-construction meeting with the adjoining property owner and the village engineer, I would move approval of the variance. And that is a side yard setback variance of 15 feet.
9 feet.
9 feet?
It's the ordinance is 40% of the width of the lot, which comes out to be 34 feet. So the actual setback would be 34 feet, not 40 feet. It's 40%.
Okay, so
Yes,
9 feet. Okay,
9 feet's the variance, correct?
9 feet. Okay.
I just want to correct, I don't believe the Ruckmans bought the property in 90 because they were living on Andrews Lane at the time. So I'm not sure
Well, they
when.
may have purchased a property. They probably, I don't think they built in 90.
Oh, okay, okay,
They owned the property for a long time before they built.
before they built on it, okay.
It took them years to establish, to have the house be far enough back away from the road
Okay, no worries. I know that they were living on Andrews Lane because I used to go there with my daughter. They were both, Danny and my daughter rode horses together. So I knew that it
Okay.
wasn't in 1990 when
Yeah.
they moved there.
So, but when they purchased their land, that was the ruling.
I understand. Now I understand completely, but I was kind of like, that can't be right. Okay, with that, do I have a motion?
Got one. Scott made the
I'll
motion.
second. Yeah. I'll
Jen,
sec-
I'm sorry. I was doing too many things at once. Second,
I'll second.
Sandra. Thank you, Sandra.
Mrs. Sog,
Yes.
Mrs. Broom,
Yes, Mr. Broom.
Mr. Broom, sorry, Mrs. Burke,
You can bring
Yes.
this room the next time.
Mr. Deacon,
Yes.
Mrs. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Steinbrink,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner.
Yes.
All righty. Be
Thank you,
careful
Jen.
out there. Be careful.
you.
Go slowly and use very light vehicles.
And so as far as submitting geotechnical information, just when we submit for a building permit, submit that information?
I would get it to Chris as soon as you have it.
Okay,
Yeah, through emails, Joe, if you can send it to me and or send it to Chris and copy me, that would be great.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, just make sure to include both of us.
very good. Will do.
Who's that?
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Oh, I can't. Okay. Next on our agenda is permission to expand a current non-conforming accessory use and to build a detached accessory structure. It actually isn't a building. I mean, they're not going to, they're going to put it there. Detached accessory structure in the front yard. Variance request for the Racinos residents at 821 West Hill Drive, across the street from the Ruckmans. Mr. Bogart. Are you here? Oh, we have to unmute you. I can't unmute him. Can you unmute him?
He is unmuted. It just, we can't hear him.
Do you have your, we can't hear you. Not working. This is
Now,
not
Jeff, maybe
working.
you try logging out and then logging back in.
Okay.
No, no.
That was weird. Maybe he has his phone on.
Very weird.
That was very unusual. We've never had that, but maybe he had his phone on separately.
Yeah, I was on a Zoom call when somebody else sounded like Mickey Mouse, and there was some speed thing that they had to adjust on
Oh, on
Zoom.
their computer.
Yeah, but I don't know. I have no idea how to do
Well,
that.
maybe if he comes back on and he still has a problem, you could mention that.
Okay.
He has to adjust the speed.
Yeah, but
don't
where do you,
think
where do you
about
do that? Unless you do it on your Zoom controls.
I have no, I'm pretty
Yeah.
simple-minded on Zoom. I turn on my computer, I click on the link.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
and you pray it works.
Right. Well, it didn't work, so I had to talk to Dave about that. So,
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
thank you, Jeff. Okay.
That technology sometimes is not
It's
full.
a fickle.
It is.
We're all ready for this pandemic to be over.
You're not kidding. Or at least I'll be vaccinated.
Okay, so I represent the Racinos, and what they're after is what was stated in the pretext to this portion of the meeting. The accessory structure wants to be placed adjacent to an existing tennis court, and the tennis court happens to have a wall as part of the fencing that they use for self-play. You can hit a ball against it, so you don't need a partner. And we would like to place it at that location so that it will become less obstructive for view. Plus, there is a tremendous amount of trees between this property and the adjacent property to the west.
I noticed that the trees had a lot of pink ribbons. What was the point of the pink ribbons?
I don't know what those are.
I was wondering if those trees were coming down or being
Yeah.
saved.
Hi, this is Violette Racinos. Hi, everyone. I can answer that question. Thank you guys for having this meeting. Yeah, some of those trees are dead, so, or dying. So the plan was they were going to replace them. But we were waiting for this meeting to see when to replace them, because when they come out, it will make it easier to actually place the structure there. And then we were gonna replace those trees.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Now he's talking and you can't hear him.
So in our submittal, we've asked for this accessory structure. We've tried to make it unobtrusive. It's really in the side yard. The house is set well beyond the 100-foot building setback for the front. It's at about 200 feet behind the front property line. And this structure then does not interfere with any of the setbacks, other than it's in this spot, because as you get to the rear of the tennis court and the house, the land slopes down significantly, more than 60 feet to the rear property line. So we really don't have any choices to locations to put this. Plus, it's going to house some sports equipment, say for the tennis court, and some other items for their children.
Any comments from the neighbors?
I did not, not on this one. I did not receive any for this one.
Okay, good.
So I may have some questions for
Go ahead.
Todd and.
I thought you
would. So I'm trying to figure out what exactly our variance is here, because the use variance, I think, because there's two separate lots. And the
Yeah, but aren't they consolidated?
They were consolidated from the best of my review of the county records.
Okay. All right, because I was looking, I still saw two separate lot numbers, but maybe that's on the
They
big
leave
guy.
the extra lot number, but if you'll take a look at it, it is consolidated into one under one ownership.
All right, well,
They consolidated that a long time ago. Yep.
That makes it easy then. So the question is for me then, because we have one, so this would be an accessory building, and the tennis court counts as an accessory, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
And then there's a shed behind the tennis court, right?
Yes.
So this would be three. So we've got to grant a variance for side yard. And this one's less, it looks like it's less than 250 square feet. So it's one you could have by right, but it'll be the third accessory use. So we should grant an accessory variance and a side yard variance. Am I right, Todd?
Ed is on the other side of the
Well,
tennis court.
go ahead, Madam Chair.
I'm just trying to understand all the buildings. There are two squares on the.
One of those
court.
is an electrical panel that's inside of a very, very, very small structure, so that the panel is not out in the weather.
Yeah.
The other one is a very small playhouse.
Yeah. Those are okay.
So where is the shed? Or is there a shed?
This structure, if you want to call it a shed, is adjacent to the tennis court. If you can see our site plan, it is on the west side of the tennis court. Away from the house is the west side.
So there's not an additional shed besides this new structure?
Correct. There's a playhouse, which doesn't count, and an electrical cover, which doesn't count.
All right, so this would be.
And they don't need a side yard setback because they're 56 feet.
Front yard setback, isn't it?
It's just a front yard.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so this is.
So
Scott, may I weigh in?
I've got,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Todd.
I would have analyzed this as the need for a variance and not a non-conforming use. It is a totally separate accessory use from the tennis court, which is an accessory use. And I guess my question to Dave Biggert is, I assume that all the neighbors were notified of this as if it was advertised as a variance? Yes, okay. And so the second thing is, Scott, I would treat it as a variance from the front yard setback requirement for accessory uses, that they can't be in a front yard, only in a side and rear yard. And I would use the variance factors that we use for variances for an area or size variance to analyze this.
Okay.
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 I think the fact that all the neighbors got notice of this, whether it's called a non-conforming use or a variance, I don't think makes that much difference. And I can't believe anybody would contest that.
Yeah.
Issue.
Okay. All right.
And
So,
does this need to go through ARB?
Yeah, what's the size of the shed, the structure? There's no dimensions.
Give me 1 second and see if I can find the size. Thought it was in the letter to you.
It just says prefabricated.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second, let me take a look at another document.
Yeah, I don't think any of what we have gives you the dimensions. But that's a really good question.
It's bigger than 10 by 12, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
That would need to go in for an architectural.
Okay, great.
all right. So, anybody else? All
So
right,
Dave,
so-
you wanted to go through architectural before we grant a variance or after?
No, they are, it's the variance would need to be granted first and then architectural.
Okay,
Okay, so we have an application for a variance for the property located at 821 West Hill Drive, the Racino's property. The variance is for a accessory structure in the front yard, side yard and front yard. And so the first question is, the property in question will or will not yield a reasonable return. There can or cannot be a beneficial use of the property without the variance because, well, clearly, there can be beneficial use of the property. This is an item really of convenience for the property owner. So there can be beneficial use, but that's not the only requirement. The variance is substantial or insubstantial because, well, so we already have we already have an accessory structure, the tennis court, which is in both the front and the side yard. They're set back significantly off of the street. I believe Mr. Bogart said almost 200 feet.
The house was 200 feet. There is no dimension on the tennis court, but it's close to that.
And so significantly off the street and it is significantly farther away than the zoning requirements in the side yard. So it's going to be pretty hard to see this thing there. So given the fact that there is an accessory structure in the side yard and front yard, this variance is insubstantial. I guess there would also be worth mentioning that the structure sought is a shed, which is at least it appears, we don't have the exact dimensions of the shed, but it appears to be less than 250 square feet, which would be a storage shed that they could put in by right under 1157.03G, as long as they complied with the setback rules. The essential character of the neighborhood would or would not be substantially altered, and the adjoining properties would or would not suffer a substantial detriment result of the variance. So none of the neighbors have indicated there was any issue. They were contacted and no one responded. This is a shed. It's far off the front line. It's far off the sideline. Probably no one's even going to know that it's there. So I would say the essential character would not be substantially altered. The variance would not affect the delivery of any government services. The applicant purchased the property with the knowledge of the zoning restriction. The applicant's predicament feasibly can or cannot be resolved through some other method other than a variance. They're looking for a place to store sports equipment for the tennis court and possibly other things. And so there is really no other way to do it, given the topographical nature of the land. The spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would or would not be observed, the substantial justice done, not done by granting the variance. Here, we're putting a shed next to a tennis court. It's significantly farther back from the road. They could actually build the house well in front of it. So I think the spirit and the intent of the zoning requirements would be honored and substantial justice would be done by granting the variance here. So for those reasons, I move that a variance be granted to put a shed as shown in the drawings in the front and side yards of the property adjacent to the tennis court.
I need a second.
So Scott, just to clarify, is this being considered a shed then, that it does not need to go to ARB, or this is contingent on this has to go to ARB?
I think that's based on the square footage. I don't think that's anything
Correct.
to do with us.
This is not considered a shed. It's considered an accessory structure because of its size, which does need to go to the
Okay.
architectural board.
So sorry, just
The size of the shed, by the way, we found out is 12 by 20, 240 square feet.
Need a second?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the second.
Second.
Mrs. Sog,
Yes.
Mr. Broom,
Yes.
Mrs. Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Deacon,
Yes.
Mrs. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Steinbrink,
yes.
Mrs. Turner.
Yes.
Well done, Jeff.
Thank
All
you.
set.
Okay.
All right, next on our agenda is permission to install a new stormwater culvert pipe and drive within a protected riparian zone. Variance request for the Gregorian property located at 1340 County Line Road. Joshua Edgel, Gem Construction.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm asking for permission to cross the riparian setback for the new single-family home for Jason and Larissa Gregorin. We did have an environmental study done, and that it showed that we did not need to have anything from the Army Corps or the EPA, and that the ephemeral stream is no longer federally jurisdictional. So we are just asking for the approval from Gates Mills to cross this the stream to get to the new single family home. The 24-inch culvert is about 50 foot long.
And this is a permitted activity under the riparian setback ordinance. They need to cross the stream in order to get to the developable portion of the property. So the riparian setback ordinance provides for the ability to cross streams in order to access buildable land.
Have you looked at this, Chris? At the site?
I have. We're on the verge of approving the site plan, and they've done what they can to minimize any disturbances with the crossing, so they're not overdoing it. And they picked a location that it will work as well as anything else on the site. So I don't have any problems with anything.
And they'll have to repair the area as they put this.
They will. The restoration requirements will also be included in their plan, and they'll have to handle sediment erosion control and then permanent restoration per their Ohio EPA and PDS stormwater permit that they'll have for operating a construction site.
So Chris, can I take a step back from what you just said a minute ago regarding that it's a permitted function? So are you saying there's no approval necessary from the commission?
No, there is approval that's needed. It's just one of the permissible activities that's specifically mentioned in the ordinance in terms of being eligible for a variance. You know, be one of the reasons to consider a variance.
Any other comments?
I have one question of Todd. Todd, in looking at the variance or the ordinance. So it says, determining whether there's unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty. In this case, I think it meets either one. But do I need to mention one or the other or both?
I think this is more of a practical difficulty standard. I don't think you need to mention both.
Okay. Like I said, I think it would make either one because you couldn't build on the lot if you came across the stream. So
well,
I would
you
agree
can
with
include
practical
both. I
difficulty.
don't think there's a downside to including both.
Okay.
Anyone else have comments before we do the review? Okay.
Okay, so we have an application for a variance to install a culvert over a ferial stream in a riparian setback. So they want to install a culvert there for the stream at 1340 County Line Road. The applicants are the Gregorian family. And in evaluating this, we have to determine whether property in question will or will not yield a reasonable return, and there can or cannot be beneficial use of the property without the variance. But here, from the way the stream crosses all of the access to County Line Road, there could not be a reasonable return without granting the variance here. So there would be no access to the property to a building site on the property. 2, the variance is substantial or insubstantial. In this case, appears to be insubstantial. The culvert will maintain the water flow with minimal disturbance. It's going to allow the water to continue to move across the property without pooling. I believe that the village engineer indicated that the Ohio EPA building permit will have some erosion controls on here, and they'll have to have a restoration plan after they do the building. So I think the variance here is insubstantial. The essential character of the neighborhood would or would not be substantially altered. Adjoining properties would or would not suffer substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Here, the character of the neighborhood would not be. There's going to be a driveway over the stream with culverts to carry the water. The water is still going to flow in the way that it does, so it shouldn't impact the adjoining properties, assuming that it doesn't get funneled down into a real small culvert. But I assume the culvert will be large enough to carry the water, Chris.
Yeah.
Yes, it will, 24 inches.
And the variance would not affect the delivery of government services. The applicant purchased the property with the knowledge of the zoning restriction. The applicant's predicament feasibly cannot be resolved through some other method other than a variance. Because here, you wouldn't be able to build on the lot at all. And as you couldn't get access to any place that would meet the other zoning requirements. And last but not least, the spirit intent behind the zoning requirement would or would not be observed and substantial justice done or not done by granting the variance. So the riparian waterway ordinances were enacted to protect the waterways and to make sure that there's no destruction of them or substantial harm to them. And this is going to be a very minimal disruption to the creek. It's going to allow it to continue to flow, and it won't cause any problems in the neighbor's property or any problems downstream. So here, the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be met, even in light of the variance. So in light of those things, I would move that we approve a variance to allow the construction of a culvert over the within the riparian setback area at 1340 County Line Road.
Second.
Thank you, Craig.
Mrs. Sog,
Yes.
Mr. Broom,
Yes.
Mrs. Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Deacon,
Yes.
Mrs. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Steinbrink,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner.
Yes.
All right, Josh,
Yay.
I think
you
we've
so
run you
much.
through the gauntlet enough.
We appreciate your help. Thank you.
We appreciate your taking good care of our riparian area.
You got it.
And with that, I think we're adjourned. Anyone have any other comments or questions?
Thank you all. Well done. Thank you, Tom, for hosting.
Yep. Nancy, just so you know, there were only 2 people watching. I was one of them. There are no questions. So
Oh, thank you.
I'll end the live stream now.
Thank you. I
Thank
don't
you.
know. We had 2 visitors on our site, though. Kathy and Rivka
Who?
were in the
It was
meeting.
Dr. Ryba. He has the lot that comes directly off of County Line. There's an easement through
Okay,
his property that goes to the Gregorians.
okay,
And I think Kathy Segula. She owns an existing vacant lot to the west of Gregorians.
okay. And then there's a house next door that's owned by Cindy Halley.
Yes.
So I assume she was notified.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep. And I received her card, her certified card back. So she did
Okay, great.
receive the letter.
good. Okay, thank you. Thank you
Thanks.
all. Good meeting.
Yeah.
You calling me, Sandra?
Yeah,
Do
do
you-
you, yeah,